So give us a minute.
Oh. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Mr. Chair.
You're muted, Stephen.
I'll be darned, I was muted.
Muted.
Okay, I believe we are live now on YouTube.
We weren't before.
We are now.
All right. I can't see everyone. Ah, there you are. All right. So it looks like everybody is here. Yes. All right. So I'll call the meeting to order. It's 6:01. And if I can find my notes and figure out what I'm doing, call to order, Pledge of Allegiance. How about a volunteer for starting off with that? Or I can start it actually, I guess. You want to place your hand over your right hand over your heart. Okay, ready?
Ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the
republic
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under Goddess,
indivisible,
with
liberty
and
and
justice
justice for
for
most.
Okay, that's good. We managed to get through it. Roll call, please.
Good evening, commissioners. Commissioner Borelli,
Here.
Commissioner Meltzer,
here.
Commissioner Rebeck,
Present.
Commissioner Shandrick,
here.
Vice Chair Palmieri,
Here.
Chair Davis.
Here.
You have a quorum. Thank you.
Yay. All right. So I need a motion to approve the agenda for the minutes, or for today's agenda. Excuse me.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. May we have a roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Borelli,
Aye.
Commissioner Meltzer,
Yes.
Commissioner Rebeck,
Aye.
Commissioner Shandrick,
Yes.
Vice Chair Palmieri,
Same.
Chair Davis.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. Now it'd be an approval of the minutes of the last meeting, January 12th. I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Oh,
Everyone's afraid to move, but there are plenty of seconds.
Who's our first and who's our second?
Commissioner Borelli was the first.
As he
I
moved.
think Commissioner Meltzer got in that second, just before Shandrick.
Thank you. Let me do roll call. Commissioner Borelli,
Aye.
Commissioner Meltzer,
Yes.
Commissioner Rebeck.
Aye.
Commissioner Shandrick,
yes.
Vice Chair Palmieri.
I'd like to change my last vote to yes and abstain on the minutes. I got confused. My agenda
Okay.
is sort of blurred.
Thank you. Chair Davis.
Aye.
Thank
So now we're open to the public comment. Jenny, do we have any public comment?
Yes, we do. We currently have Mike Rizzo on the line. He'll be making public comment. Mike, you have 3 minutes. Thank you so much.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Mike Rizzo. I'm the program director at CAST Centers here in West Hollywood. I want to thank David and Joan, for inviting me to speak with you tonight. Just make a public comment. Again, I'm the program director of CAST Centers, and CAST Centers is gay-owned and operated by Mike Baer. And Mike Baer is also a resident of West Hollywood as well. CAST currently provides outpatient programs for mental health, substance abuse, and co-occurring disorders. And our programming includes a partial hospitalization program, an intensive outpatient program, and our Luna program, which is it's an evening program, and it's an intensive outpatient program. We use a curriculum called the CAST alignment model, which we developed, and it really deals with some of the topics are related to it are relationships and attachment, authentic communication, and exploring family dynamics. We also offer aftercare program. We have an alumni support group, and we also do life coaching. Currently, we've offered the city of West Hollywood a scholarship to our evening IOP program for any West Hollywood constituents. And I think it's also important to note that we are following COVID guidelines here at CAST. And we've actually created a hybrid model where we're doing in-person and telehealth medicine for those people that would like to opt into that. We invite people to come in, but if they're not comfortable with that, we also provide telehealth. Our Luna program is exclusively telehealth, and we're following all safety protocols. And I think it's also important to note that most of our staff is in the vaccine process. So that's a little bit about CAST. I don't feel like I took 3 minutes, but I just wanted to make you aware that we're here in West Hollywood. We're located on Doheny, on the corner of Santa Monica and Doheny. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Jenny, do we have any other public speaker?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzo. I appreciate it.
Hi, Mike.
All right. So there is no consent calendar and there is no unfinished business. Boy, oh boy, we are moving right along, and we're to new business, an update on the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, GARE, and a report on social service utilization by community members of color during 1920 contract year. From what I understand, I'm going to hand it over to Katie and her team.
That's correct.
Hi, commissioners. I'm actually.
There he is.
Oh,
There you are.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
There.
great. Actually, Francisco's going to start us off, so I'll
Okay.
pass it right over to him.
Thank you.
Francisco, you're muted.
And Jenny, if you could start the PowerPoint, that would be helpful too. So good evening, commissioners. Today, Katie and I are here to present a report on the utilization of social services programs by community members of color during the 2019-20 contract year. In addition, we will also provide an update on the city's recent membership to the Government Alliance on Race Equity. Go on to the next slide, Jenny. So in October of 2020, the City Council asked staff to conduct further research focused on the needs of people of color in West Hollywood, concentrating on health disparities and gaps in service. This report initiates work on this directive by providing an analysis of service utilization focused on community members of color. And next slide. Demographic data used to analyze service utilization by community members of color was sent to the city by its social services contracted agencies. The agencies, as you may know, submit program reports that include client ethnicity, gender, age, and primary language spoken to the city on a quarterly basis. The reports received in October of every year provide demographic information of clients served throughout the contract year. We used this specific set of reports to conduct the analysis included in the staff report. So this particular chart should look familiar to most of you. It was included in the report that came to the commission in December of 2020. The chart provides an overall view of who utilized services during the 2020 contract year. As you may remember, a total of 9,177 West Hollywood community members access service. Of the 9,177, 66% identified as white, 25 were community members of color, and ethnicity information was unknown for 9% of clients. Next slide, Jenny. So this report is different from the report that came to the commission in December in that it focuses on the utilization of social services programs by service category by community members of color. To analyze the data in this way, staff first categorize the social services programs into 11 categories. They're the same categories we used in the mid-year report to explain or to break out age and gender. Next, we gathered demographic data for the programs grouped into the categories and analyzed the data. Attachment A to the staff report includes the complete analysis. In the report, we highlight access to social services by community members of color. We considered any client who identified as Asian, Pacific Islander, Black, Hispanic, or Native American to be a community member of color. Now, this table summarizes access to social services by community members of color. The very first column lists the 11 service categories we grouped agencies into. The column that follows lists the total number of clients that were served by by agencies in those categories. The column that follows lists the percentage of clients in that category who were identified as community members of color. And the last column lists the percentage of clients whose ethnicity was unknown. So just going down the list, I'll just mention the percentage of clients of color who were identified in each of the categories. So for senior and disabled services, 9% were community members of color. For legal services, the number was 10%. For nutrition services, the number was 12%. For financial assistance services, 31%. Health, mental health, 33%. HIV, sexual health, 34%. Employment services, 34%. Substance abuse services, 52%. Youth services, 54%. Homeless services, 61%. And transgender services at 80%. All right, next chart. All right, so thank you, commissioners. I'll now hand this over to Katie, who will kind of talk about some data limitations and next steps in addressing this council directive.
Great, thank you, Francisco. And give me just 1 second. Okay, great. So good evening, commissioners. In going through this process, staff identified a few issues in our current data set. So we wanted to give everyone a clear picture of how to read and interpret this data. So I will walk through what those limitations are and how they may be impacting the numbers that we have. So the first thing to note is that it is possible for a person to receive services from multiple agencies within the same service category. So for example, a white community member could receive services from Trans-Latina Coalition in January and then receive different services from the Transgender Economic Empowerment Project later in the year. This would result in duplicate data in the transgender services category and cause the demographics report to show an overcount in the number of white community members served. Contracted agencies do work with clients to identify and coordinate with previous service providers, but at this time, data is not reported in a way that would allow city staff to identify and remove potential duplicates. The other thing to note is that partners that provide services across categories are currently limited to the primary service category for that agency. So for example, the LGBT youth program provides youth services, but demographic data reporting for the agency is only included in the homeless services category because that is the primary service that we have them contracted for. For that reason, each service category gives a snapshot of community members served throughout the year, but it does not necessarily incorporate all community members who received that specific type of service. Lastly, we wanted to flag an issue that Commissioner Meltzer has actually raised before. So demographics data reported by contracted agencies is not currently broken down by services received or target populations. So some service category data may include individuals that did not actually receive that type of service. For example, JFS Comprehensive Services offers both older adults and people with disabilities, offer services to both older adults and people with disabilities of any age. As a result, the senior services category is combined with the disability services category and includes data for people who are not seniors. Addressing these limitations and finding ways to improve the city's current data collection methods will play an important role in our next steps, which I'll dive into now. Next slide, please, Jenny. Thank you. As we mentioned, data from the 2019-2020 fiscal year provides some insight into how social services were utilized by community members of color. However, it does not clearly identify unmet needs within the West Hollywood community. Additional research and analysis are needed to understand current gaps in service and disparities in outcomes, particularly among community members of color who have faced centuries of systemic inequality in American economic, housing, education, and healthcare systems. Immediate next steps include incorporating tonight's feedback from the Commission and using that to guide the work going forward. In accordance with the feedback from former Commissioner Thomas, staff plan on prioritizing future research that is focused on the needs of community members of color and led by teams of diverse backgrounds who are best equipped to develop data collection and evaluation methodologies that are respectful of the needs of diverse communities. Through this work, we hope to continue the city's great legacy of promoting and advancing social justice. And I'll turn it back over to Francisco to talk more about how the city's membership in the Government Alliance for Racial Equity, or GARE, will allow us to meet those needs.
Thanks, Katie. So in July of 2020, the city joined a national network of government agencies working to achieve racial equity and advance opportunities for all community members. The Government Alliance on Race Equity, or GARE, is a program founded by Race Forward, a national nonprofit founded in 1981. Through GARE, West Hollywood joins over 300 government agencies, including 155 cities, in a collaborative forum to share tools, best practices, accomplishments, and lessons learned. With the help of these tools, jurisdictions seek to analyze and assess the government's historical role in continuing inequitable outcomes and to learn how to apply a racial equity lens to all facets of government, including hiring, procurement, health, wealth, safety, housing, and social services. West Hollywood has 9 GARE division teams supported by lead staff. GARE teams are working to set goals and to advance racial equity in the city. Teams are tasked with reviewing their departmental budgets, work plans, policies, and practices to assess the role those policies may play in advancing or hindering racial equity. The city's social services GARE team has taken the lead on this report. With that said, thank you so much for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions the Commission may have.
So commissioners, questions? Should start with, let's see, I will start with Commissioner Borelli. Is that all right, Mr. Borelli, Commissioner?
Commissioner Meltzer had her hand up.
I can't see Commissioner Meltzer.
Can we let Commissioner Meltzer go? Honestly, it's a little overwhelming, and you're sitting. I'll just bluntly say it's a little overwhelming. I mean, I read it over the weekend and just hearing the report now, and it's just sort of a lot to take in at the moment. So I was still formulating like where we would even begin. So I was glad to see Barbara had her hand up.
But Claire can't see me, and I put lipstick on.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So what I'd like to understand, I feel the same way as Commissioner Borelli, but I'd like to know more about the 9 GARE division teams. Are you teaming with 9 teams from GARE? It's amazing. I mean, I looked on their website, and this is all really quite extraordinary. But I'm more interested in the teams, or 9 teams in West Hollywood, or combined or collaborating.
Yeah, so the GARE teams are within the city of West Hollywood. So they are mostly determined by division. So the social services team is the one who took the lead on this report, but there is also a strategic initiatives team. I believe there is a team in, I'm actually forgetting the other teams that are available, but and Francisco, feel free to jump in, but that's how it's organized.
But they're West Hollywood, okay. Okay, really, it's just incredible, but it is overwhelming. This is great. No, so that's the only question I have right now. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Commissioner Reback. do you have anything?
Sure, thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. Are those units, are we counting people or are we counting access points when we see those numbers about, it looked like, I couldn't tell if we were counting people or if you were saying multiple people access different services and therefore they may appear multiple times on that chart. Can you clarify that for me?
So yeah, so so we're counting people. So each agency reports new and duplicated clients served. However, there could be more than one agency represented in one category. So if an individual access services had more than one agency in a category, that individual is overcounted. So that's what we were trying to explain in the presentation.
So an agency may provide 50 services to 45 people. Is that what you're saying?
So the agency reports new and duplicated numbers. So the numbers we get from the agency are individual, like they're just one person receives service. However, in a category, we could have 3 different agencies. If the same person access service at each of those 3 agencies, then that person's overcounted when we aggregate the data by service category.
Okay, all right. I think that's good. And just listening to everything, I agree with Commissioner Borelli. It was sort of an overwhelming thing to take in and read, but it's very good data. I would applaud the city's work on looking for better methods of data collection, more accurate methods of data collection. I think that's always a good thing, and it will improve our appropriations. And maybe we should see how other small cities deal with this if they run into a similar problem. And I also think this may be a good thing to ask the city council for some appropriations to spend money on. If there are professionals out there in surveying or statistics that can help us improve on what we're doing, that may be a worthwhile expenditure. But thank you so much for the report, very informative, and glad that the public is able to see those statistics on the YouTube channel.
Thank you. Commissioner Shandrick.
Thanks, Chair Davis. It's hard to interpret the data. We're over 50% serving people of color in certain areas and certainly under that in other areas. So it's, at this point, it's a little bit hard to understand where we're at. But I encourage us to continue to look at this, and this kind of sets a benchmark to see how we're moving towards that more equity lens in the future. I would ask if there's any data that could be called out from the community study if we did a crosstab of race and to the answers of the most recent community study. It may not be a large statistical pool, but it could give us as well as people kind of moving on the survey in the future a little bit more of a solid ground to understand where we're at and what the numbers mean.
So,
do you know if we're able to look at crosstabs of the last community study by race?
Yeah, we should be able to. I want to first, and I don't want to interrupt the question, so I can provide some direction later. But we did, in reviewing the report for tonight, we did all feel like it was a lot of information. So we just wanted to present it, and have the discussion, receive your input. We want to hear exactly as you just mentioned, Commissioner Shandrick, can we do a deeper dive into the crosstabs for the community study and do an analysis comparison between the two? I also want to provide a little bit of context. I think it's very eye-opening, when you see these percentages for each of the service categories, and you see something like nutrition that has a smaller percentage of community members of color accessing. But also, to give it some context, GFS Nutrition, that service specifically, and Angel Food, that is limited to service to residents. We only deliver to folks who have an address in West Hollywood. And as we know, the demographics of the residents of West Hollywood is less diverse racially than the whole number of community members or affiliates that can access other social services. So for GFS Nutrition, they're going to deliver to somebody who lives, right down the street on Sweetser in West Hollywood, but they're not going to deliver to an affiliate who works in West Hollywood, who goes to school in West Hollywood, who owns property but doesn't live in West Hollywood. So those services, when you look at those numbers, think about which services are specifically targeting residents and which services, such as the transgender programs, that are open to any affiliate. It can be someone who works, someone who is homeless and spends the majority of time. It really opens it up. Plus, as you know, as you were all involved in assisting with that last RFP process, we definitely, we focused on bringing in more contracts to target our transgender community. We knew that there is a gap in service. We need to provide more services. And as you know, one of those services, or one of those programs, was Trans Latina, who will assist anyone, but does target the
We're going to give him a moment to come back online.
Unfreeze.
He was making an excellent point too.
Yeah, it is a good point.
Yeah. I could also see some of the legal services as we're focusing on eviction. The eviction moratorium and rental assistance obviously goes to West Hollywood residents specifically.
Yes.
David's the only person that freezes that he still looks good.
And I'm happy to jump into just on David's point. I also think comparing to the community study, we did discuss it, and it does also prevent some difficulties, because there is also the possibility that certain demographics or groups might be more in need of specific services than the community as a whole. So while the community as a whole may have a certain demographic makeup, folks who are in need of substance abuse services may differ systematically or systemically from the entire West Hollywood community. So we didn't want to kind of create that comparison as though it was, and then kind of cause confusion or make assumptions about why there might be differences between the community study and the numbers that we're seeing in terms of people served. But it's definitely something we want to look more into.
Okay. Barbara, I can see your hand this time.
Oh, yay. It's Leslie, this is a quick question. Employment services, as an example, includes those provided by JVS WeHo. And so the trans works would be only on the transgender sheet. Is that what it is, and not included in overall employment?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
That's good. All right.
Stephen, can you see my
Jump in,
hand?
Mr. Chair.
No, I can't see your hand, but I'm headed towards you, actually.
Okay.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. The percentages are almost exactly where I would have expected them to be. This is a lot of information, and I have to believe that some of these folks, because of what I've seen over the years, some of these folks are accessing these three top services for that percentage, which would be substance abuse, transgender, and youth. And I've seen that a common denominator in with the folks that we handle in this city. I've seen all of those services in those demographics. So I expected those to be high. Everything is exactly as I expected it. I David was saying it so eloquently, and I'm sad that he was cut off, but I would like a deeper dive in a cross pollination or a cross examination of the community study, and so that we can get some type of an actual analysis. Other than that, though, this is, it's filled with information. When I read it, and then when David explained it, it was different of what I understood it. The percentages stayed the same, and also the idea of what percentages were higher were always the same in my head as they have been for many years at this stage. David did say also that some of the folks that are being served may not have an address, which answers to the percentage of these particular topics. But we also, as a commission, know that those folks that may be housing challenged still are community members. They may not be able to have an address to get nutrition services, but they can access other services like substance abuse, sexual health, homeless, transgender. And so these all, David said it so much more eloquently than I could have, but everything is in line. I would like a deeper dive in a cross-examination, if that's at all possible.
Is there anyone who else would like to speak to this that I can't see? Sam, I can see. Okay. Sam, go ahead, Mr. Burrell. Commissioner.
As much as I disagree with agreeing with Commissioner or Vice Chair Palmieri, he's right. The numbers, again, when I read them the second time, did not, it seemed in alignment with who lives here, and then who's considered a community member here. And then interestingly, we had a weird year. So a lot of these numbers are counting from January through the end of September. So they're probably not, data is data, and it's like the homeless count. It's a point in time count. So this is a point in time count, and really a great place to begin with some good data that that the community study can really inform us more. And I thought it was a great report, staff, both in the PowerPoint that you just showed us and in the packet itself. Easy to read. I like how the services were broken up. And then for visual folks like us, the charts really helpful as well. So I think it's a great place to start. And I love the idea that you're attacking this like we did the aging in place. And we started with aging in place in a very similar way. We have to capture some data, and then we can start drilling down and having the staff utilize these components in terms of their everyday work and where things fit in. That's the only way that we're going to be able to affect change here. So thank you, and good work, team.
I don't even know if I'm on. It's a very good report. There's a lot of data. I was not, what is it called? I was surprised to see some of the numbers where they were and where they weren't. However, I want to know about feeding programs. You're saying that a feeding program must have an address, yet we service anyone who spends time in the city, works in the city, or lives in the city. So if I were working in the city and I needed a meal, why can't it be delivered to my work address, which would be within the city's limits? So, I mean, we have a way of counting and also delivering services to people who work or not necessarily live in the city. I can think that a meal a day in a place like my work would be like considered, what is it called, a boon, because they have to come up with their own money, their own way of getting it, and it's usually not good for them. Sorry to say it, but it's usually fast food or what I would consider junk. So, I mean, we're obviously, this report has kind of opened up other things to be looked at. But I'm not certain why, if I were working in the city, I couldn't have a meal delivered to me if I met certain requirements. So I'm
delivered to your business. Delivered to your business.
Yes. Why couldn't they be delivered to the business? The business address would be within the city. That's easily verified. Like you can verify all of our addresses, and we all live within the city. So I mean, you know, I've even had commissioners on the commission that did not live in the city, but work in the city or did business with the city. So, I mean, it seems like we're kind of opening up a lot of questions as opposed to answering anything or giving you any kind of direction. In my opinion, I hear more like good report, nice place to start, too much information, information that is not analyzed. We can't, like my biggest concern would be why. Bingo, you know, and how. So those are the ones that would bother me. Commissioner Melton.
I have a question about delivering meals to people who work here. How would we know who needs the meals? How would we find out? How does that work?
Well, for me, it was just an example to try to show you that we have a lot of agencies, like he used the meal delivery as saying that they have to have a specific address. So we know that person is a resident. But if we're open to people who work in or play in the city, then we should be able to deliver meals to someone who needed it. They would say they needed it. Like you could do a survey or I don't think we even have a close idea of who works in the city and who doesn't. When you know, most of them are hotel, restaurant, service industry, which is on the lower scale, even at $15 an hour is still on the lower scale. So there will be need for some things. Yes, Mr. Palmieri.
So, David, maybe I can ask you this question. I didn't want to bring it up because I didn't want to open up a Pandora's box as far as feeding. And, you know, I know sometimes we want folks to get into service in order to get food. So with these statistics, especially 80, 50, and 54, something like that, clearly these folks are in service. So if they are in service and are accessing our providers, why are they not entitled to other providers, you know, for a meal or something? Why can't they simply go to get a meal or have a specific place where they're supposed to meet for a meal? I know this becomes problematic in certain instances, but in other instances where folks are trying to get it together and are accessing services, it seems to me that if they're going to, let's say Tarzana, but they're on a 72-hour wait, why they couldn't be given meals for 3 days so that they are remaining healthy and remaining, okay, I'm going to stay in this. You know, I've seen the littlest thing make someone run away from service. So if we can keep them in service, and like Stephen was saying, give them something that might feed their body a little bit better than fast food, especially at those particular times, I can't see why not. I don't think that we should be opening a stand so that there's a line around the block for food, but I do think if someone's in service and we have verified that they are a community member, I don't know why they can't access other services, particularly for food.
And they can. And that's what Francisco was mentioning, or Katie actually, with some of the fallibility of our data, is that we're reporting, and I apologize, my internet went out. We're reporting the primary service that someone receives. But for example, you know, someone may, you know, get services from TEEP, an older adult, and need meals, and we send them to the senior services at the LA LGBT Center that provides lunches. Now they're doing a grab and go lunch due to COVID. So we do regularly refer folks to other meal resources. What you see, and this is again the fallibility of, you know, this first kind of pass through the data, is this is reporting that Food and Nutrition, it's reporting Angel Food, it's reporting JFS Nutrition, and those do currently deliver to residences. But we have other resources for food, and we regularly refer folks to get those. For the folks, the commissioners who've been here a little bit longer, that, you know, that came up frequently, because when we had our congregate sites, specifically the Plummer Park site, we had a number of homeless community members, unhoused community members that would access lunch there. And it was, you know, it was challenging for folks, because what we had asked at the time, it was PATH. PATH said, you know what, we'll go there and we'll have a sack lunch to provide. we would like to have that opportunity to engage and talk about other services. So there was a real, you absolutely want folks to have, food resources and decent nutrition. We also want to link folks to programs, but that was a big discussion point for a while. We want to be able to provide that meal. What's the best way to get people into service overall? Is it, yes, go ahead and have lunch at Pillar Park, or the outreach team will be there at the same time outside. They've got a sack lunch. They would like to meet with you and talk about other services.
Chair Davis, if I could.
Huh?
Could I speak for a second?
Oh, yeah, go please.
Just in general, and listening to you and Vice Chair Palmieri, it seems like maybe we can use this data to see where the city can expand on services that may be limited to residents or limited in some way to some groups and not all community members in general, let's say. It seems like there's some sentiment from commissioners, and I would echo it, that if we can use the data to expand services to more people that have an essential relationship to the city, whether or not they physically live here, then all the better. And I think that's a good way to use the data that you presented and improve on it if we can.
Thank you.
Any other comments? It's a very strange thing here tonight. For some reason, I can't see everyone. And so if you want to just shout, go right ahead.
No, I just want to say, I think the report is terrific. I really enjoyed reading it. I will have a lot of questions, which I don't have now, because it was a little complicated, but I think it's terrific. So thank you, everybody, for doing this.
Yeah, I was actually going to suggest that if it's possible, this can be put on a later agenda again with maybe a little more filler, which we can start to understand the whys and the hows and the wherefores. And because just actual data is very hard to say, oh, this is how we work go forward. So I don't know if that sounds like a good idea, Mr. Juni, but
absolutely, we wanted exactly this input. We knew it was a lot. I think there are a few maybe little tweaks that we could do as far as looking at the data, and frankly, go back and look at the community study, as Commissioner Shandrick mentioned. And then yes, we planned on having this in front of the commission. We're also taking this to the LGAB on Thursday for input, and we planned on bringing it to you, at least a few times before making recommendations and going to council. So maybe we can make a few tweaks, look at the community study, and then bring it back like in maybe April, in a couple months, and have the next level discussion.
Well, I would like to congratulate you on having joined the GAR team to begin with. I think that's a good place to start, and we can certainly add to that. But without further ado, I'm about to move us to item B, if that's all right. Is everybody satisfied? I am going to item B then, which is actually Elizabeth, Corey, and Diane, or Corey, Diane, and Elizabeth, or however you would like me to say it. So Corey, you're up.
Hi. Good evening, Commissioners. Good evening, Commissioners. You can call us in any order you want.
May I ask you a quick question? I'm just sorry, but your picture bothered me the last time, and I wanted to ask you, is that a picture of the virus? It looks like the virus to me.
It's not.
Huh?
It's not. I know it does look like it.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's a whole other thing. Good evening. Good evening. We're thrilled to be here tonight. Obviously, as Chair Davis mentioned, I'm joined here by Diane Conenstein and Elizabeth Anderson, program administrators in the Strategic Initiatives Division. And we're here to talk to you a little bit about aging in place, aging in community, and give a brief update. Many of you were around when we first started this in 2016, when we launched the 5-year strategic plan for aging in place, aging in community. In order to make West Hollywood an even more age-friendly community. And at that time, and you all played a role in this as well, we looked to increase, expand, enhance support services and interventions that would enable our older adults to maintain their independence, to live safely, and to thrive within the community. At that time, West Hollywood became the first city in Southern California to join the AARP age-friendly network of communities. And we're still active and working closely with AARP. And in fact, our strategic plan is based on the 8 domains of livability from AARP and the World Health Organization. And in 2019, I think we shared with you previously, we added 2 more domains. One was for Alzheimer's and other dementias, and the other was for public safety and emergency preparedness. And who knew we would be in a public health emergency when we added that. And as we're looking at this year's report and the ongoing work of the Aging in Place, Aging in Community initiative, we are also layering in a racial equity lens to the work in all of the domains. And so you'll be hearing more about that in the coming months as well. So when the strategic plan was approved and started to be implemented, one part of that plan was to have a consistent annual evaluation of the plan, to look at the domains, to measure how we were doing, and to see where we needed to continue to build, or where we still had work to do on some of the goals and in some of the domains. In early 2020, we were busily conferring with our consultants and getting ready to deploy the evaluation tools for year 4 when March happened and everything shut down. With the safer at home orders, the attention for everybody quickly shifted to the health and safety of community members, and with a particular focus on older adults. And so, the in-person events were canceled. We weren't doing, we just put the regular evaluation on hold. We weren't going to do the in-person surveys. We weren't going to mail surveys. And we were going to be very careful in making sure that we could really look to meet the immediate and the emerging needs of our older adults due to impacts related to COVID. We are going to be looking at a an alternative response or report that really captures everything that's happened focused on older adults during COVID. And at some point we'll be bringing that back to you. We're still in it and we're still working on some of those pieces, but we are looking at an alternative year 4 report moving forward. And so with that, I'm going to just give you a little bit of lay of the land for tonight. We're going to talk about 4 main areas, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions. We're going to talk about the direct provision of service to our older adults, our partnerships with our nonprofit agencies during this time of transition and pivoting service delivery, the emergency funding and additional services you've been hearing about in an ongoing way from David and from other staff. And then looking at the regional challenges related to aging and our collaboration with our county, state, and other partners. And I am very happy to stop talking now and turn it over to Elizabeth Anderson.
Sorry, not sure what happened because the lights just went out, but the internet's still on. So I'm actually going to double check. Diane, are you popping in first?
You are going to, but I will happily do
okay.
whatever.
Okay, sorry. Holding, sorry. Anyways, back at it. Glad to be here. Wonderful to see you, commissioners. Sorry, slightly bamboozled by the lights going out. So I'm going to open up by talking about providing direct services to individuals. And there has been so much work done over the past year during COVID. So older adults, many were reaching out to the city for the first time. And the Strategic Initiatives Division, along with the Social Services Division, provided support and linkage to city contracted agencies, as well as regional partners like the county's Great Plates and Rental Assistance Program. Older adults reached out for information about COVID-19, personal protective equipment, food, supplies, in-home support, as well as emotional support. We researched information about senior hours and early entrance to the grocery stores and CalFresh delivery options to share that with our communications department and post on our city's website. The city also coordinated several efforts to support people who were not reaching out. These include the city's communications department created a section on the city's website specifically for older adults to access relevant COVID-19 information. A citywide survey was mailed to all residents to learn more about individuals during the pandemic. City council, commission, and advisory board meetings became virtual to increase residents' access. The recreation department made calls to older adults who had previously participated in city programming and connected them to services through strategic initiatives or social services. And the city sponsored a series of webinars, with 2 of them focusing on the importance of addressing social isolation and loneliness and accessing mental health information, resources, and services during COVID-19. JFS's Telecheck program and the LA LGBT Center's Hello Club had staff checking on the community members as well. Both older adult programs offered a wide variety of virtual weekly classes, including exercise, an evidence-based aging mastery program series, an Alzheimer's caregiver support group, financial literacy workshops, and seniors in action to promote connectedness. As part of the Be Well WeHo program, the city offered a virtual mindfulness series that included classes on resiliency, making change, and overcoming fear to help reduce anxiety and stress. So then next I'll highlight the work with contracted nonprofit agencies serving older adults during COVID. So as you know, in March 2020, the city's contracted partners impressively transitioned from providing in-person services to providing services remotely via telephone, email, and Zoom. Congregate meal sites like Plummer Park were transitioned to home delivered meals. Services that required people come into community members' homes, such as home secure services, were reduced, but continued for those with high needs, like people returning from the hospital. Programs such as the Community Psychiatric Resource Program and the Volunteer Connect program were actually in higher demand than in the past year. And the Strategic Initiatives Division had oversight of 3 key city contracts that primarily serve older adults during several months of the Safer at Home orders, including the JFS Comp Services, the JFS Nutrition Program, and the LA LGBT Center's Senior Services Program. Staff was able to offer programmatic, fiscal, and constituent support with these changes. And believe me, it was an amazing amount of pivoting that the agencies were able to do in order to continue seamlessly serving our older adult community members. And despite the changes in the methods and the focus on some service areas, the year-end data collected by social services showed that 9,177 constituents access services, which remarkably is less than a 1% decrease from the prior year pre-COVID. And of the community members receiving services, 43% were over the age of 60. And then the last component I'll discuss before popping it to Diane is the additional emergency funding and services through our agency partners. So in addition to services just mentioned, the city recognized the need for additional services for vulnerable community members who are experiencing challenges during the pandemic. So the city allocated additional funds to the Social Services Division to expand current social service providers' services like the BetZetic eviction prevention and defense services, which was especially important for residents in rent-controlled and affordable housing buildings. The Alliance for Housing and Healing's Aging in Place COVID-19 Rental Assistance Program for West Hollywood renters ages 55 and up to support those who had been unable to pay rent due to issues related to COVID-19 illness. Funding also went to Project Angel Foods weekly home delivered meal program to include older adults and waiving health requirements that were previously in the program so that more older adults could be served by Project Angel Food. The additional funding also completely subsidized the 30-day Metro bus pass for West Hollywood residents who are older adults or adults living with disability. And the funding allowed West Hollywood's transit providers to deliver meals, groceries, and box fans and bottled water to older adults to safely stay at home. Because lest we forget, not only was it the pandemic, but there was also significant heat waves in 2020. So not only were the transit providers able to bring food to our residents, but also brought essentially mini cooling centers to people's homes when it was unbearably hot. Strategic initiatives coordinated with JFS Comp Services Center and the LGBT Center's senior program to distribute hundreds of masks to older adults and vulnerable community members when PPE was difficult to purchase. And a cool story we also like to share is a talented city employee also made and donated many beautiful reusable masks to our agency partners. And we appreciate the work that they did on their time volunteering. So next I'll pass to Diane to take it to the regional level.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners, and staff. Nice to see everybody and public. I'd like to expand on what Elizabeth was sharing related to our city-funded partners and look at how our work with regional and state partners and also specifically highlight work in the domains of public safety and emergency preparedness. So first, as Corey touched on, AARP, one of our original Aging in Place, Aging in Community partners, continues to engage with us in a mutually beneficial relationship. One example was at the beginning of COVID, AARP, the Office of the Governor, and the California Department of Aging created a COVID-19 resource that was great. It was in English and in Spanish. AARP shared it with the city, and we added it to the city's website under the section specifically created for older adults to access COVID-19 information. But there was no version of that in Russian. So the city created one and then posted it for our West Hollywood community members and then shared it with AARP so that they could offer it more broadly to others. In addition, to participate in to enhance and improve the city's effort to be what AARP designates as a JEDI community, which is just, equitable, inclusive, age-friendly community. So after engaging in that forum, in those forums, the city started to explore, as Corey touched on, the creation of a new domain to address racial diversity and equity and inclusion, as well as looking at how to integrate all of those beliefs into all of the other domains. And AARP not only shares information with the city, but also shares information about the city to other communities. They recently identified West Hollywood's Aging in Place, Aging Community Initiative as an example of a city program that promotes strategies that incorporates equity into our programming, our decision-making, and delivering equitable outcomes. So AARP is publishing an article on West Hollywood to be featured in the next Livable Communities newsletter, which is coming out tomorrow, to highlight our equity work to advance our LGBT community and Russian-speaking community. In addition to working with AARP, the city has also been part of an initial collaboration, which is a new cross-sector convening for our Service Planning Area 4. The collaborative group is looking to bridge the work done by two different groups of providers, one for older adults and one working with people who are experiencing homelessness. And the cross-sector is a working group to share resources and allow for all of the participants to more cohesively address issues impacting the increasing number of older adults at risk of becoming homeless or who are currently experiencing homelessness. The city has also worked with the Westside Council of Governments and our neighboring cities of Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, and Culver City to purchase and distribute PPE or personal protective equipment, as Elizabeth touched on. And then we were able to distribute to some of our most vulnerable community members, including older adults experiencing homelessness. We've been working closely with Assembly Member Bloom's office. This is hot off the presses, or not even on the presses yet. COVID-19 Scam Stopper webinar, specifically touching on COVID-19 issues related to the vaccine and the economic payment card. So we expect there'll be other scams related to that. So that'll be happening on February 23rd at 5 p.m. There will be more information coming. The last partnership I'd like to highlight is the city's work with the LA Department of Mental Health and the LA Sheriff's Department on our city contracted MET team, our mental health evaluation team, to serve older adults, both housed and unhoused, and experiencing mental health issues. The city funded MET team just completed their second fiscal year evaluation, and we look forward to bringing that to you in an upcoming meeting as well. And now, just to give you, in the last few minutes, a quick look at year 5 of Aging in Place, Aging in Community. Obviously, we will continue to co-sponsor monthly workshops with APLA's health program that offers support to people who are HIV positive and who are 50 and older. Their Hive HIV Elders program. We'll continue to promote CalFresh enrollment to increase participation of underserved residents who qualify. But there are also other new components to the city's work. The Long Range Planning Division has been interviewing older adults and other community members to gather input for the city's climate action and an adaptation plan. And there's some really interesting components that we're seeing come out of that, like a bench network. So it's easier for older adults to travel from one location to another by foot and have a place to stop. That's a sneak preview. And the city is exploring how to better close the digital divide experienced by many older adults by looking at how to access digital devices like smartphones through library programs or iPads, accessing the internet by supporting legislation. There's AB 34 and SB 4 currently that promote broadband for all, and also finding ways to have the skills of older adults in the area of technology lifted up. We were happy to hear that Recreation is working to offer a Zoom 101 for people, as it'll help with civic engagement, one other domain. On a much broader level, as Commissioner Meltzer knows, the city is engaging in local implementation of Governor Newsom's Master Plan on Aging that was released last month. And we continue to evaluate how our Aging in Place, Aging in Community work connects with the 5 bold goals and 23 strategies in the plan. And there'll be more to come on that as well. And as year 5 continues to evolve in this very different space we're in, the city continues to find new ways to address the emerging needs of older adults, including the most recent direction from council to look at a possible guaranteed income pilot program. We are extremely excited about this and look forward to coming back to you with more information. In the meantime, I'm going to stop talking so that we may all answer questions you may have. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Very nice report. And 1 second before I ask for questions, I would like to acknowledge that Commissioner Borelli told me how to get the gallery. So now I can see all of you, which is really nice. Yeah, it's really nice. And I apologize, but when you said that there was a Zoom meeting to teach you how to Zoom, I'm learning how to Zoom as I go. So it's, I think that might be something that might be good for me. So I will open it up for questions. I believe Commissioner Meltzer had her hand up first. So Commissioner Meltzer,
yes,
you have the floor.
First, I want to welcome back Elizabeth. It is so wonderful to see you. So wonderful to see you. And I want to say brava I think that you are just creating miracles. I really do. And we are all so proud. I am so proud to be a part of that. You're just doing incredible things. I love the connections with AARP. I mean, it's like we're role models. You have made the city a role model for other cities, and that's just incredible. I do have just a couple of questions. And I really don't, and I hate to say this, it sounds so ageist, and I hate to say it, but no, it's, I know that older people, when we talk about older people not being able to Zoom and not being able to do all of those things, and what are you finding in the city in terms of older people Zooming, looking at, you're updating the website, or people going, older people, and when I say older, I don't even know what I mean. But going to the website, so they're able to access the web. Do they think about going to the websites for updated information and the Zooming? What are you finding?
Corey, do you want to answer, or do you want me to?
Well, I'll just touch on it briefly. I think, you know, as Diane mentioned, we do know that there's a digital divide, and that it's, you know, it's about access to the equipment. So a smartphone or a laptop or a tablet. It's also access to broadband and Wi-Fi to make that, to power that equipment. But then it's also the knowledge and skills in using all of those things together. And that's why we're looking at the kind of advocacy and legislative remedies to help increase access in that way. And so we know that that's true. And, you know, if it wasn't a divide, there wouldn't be the other side. So there's a side of folks, you know, when we kind of talk about, you know, 55 maybe and older, there are a lot of people who are, you know, accessing technology. They are, you know, working remotely from home in West Hollywood and able to get on Zoom and you know, kind of conduct their business in a remote fashion. This has certainly pushed some people who had a kind of a certain level of skill to enhance those skills, or to get more comfortable with certain technologies that they might not have been using before because we've had to. So it's a mixed bag. I think we still, like we've seen in the community study and other things, that we still have people who want to get things in paper form and would prefer to make a phone call, but it's not always, some of it's not always age-based either. So we're working with Recreation now, as Elizabeth shared. You know, Recreation staff was making, and still is making, phone calls to older adults to check in. Sometimes they're hearing from folks that's the only live person they're talking to during the week.
Yeah.
So those calls are really important for us to continue. And we're going to be working with Recreation to look at putting out a printed version of information, specifically looking at mailing to folks over 55 that has a lot of information. And within that, we want to make sure that we include, you know, phone numbers, but also web links, and all, you know, so it's as accessible as possible for all skill levels. So it's there's not one way or the other, really.
No, I know. We older adults are cool. I have just one more question about vaccines. And only because I've talked, I mean, I've been through it myself, but I know how to navigate that, but it made me so frustrated. And I just started thinking about other people, even those who have computers, not being able to. Are we doing anything about helping people get the vaccines?
So I can jump in, Corey, if that's okay.
You want to talk?
That's going to be okay. That'll be my report under staff member comments for our update on COVID services.
Okay.
I'm going to give a rundown of agencies who can assist and our programs who can assist.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Thank you, everybody. You are just great. Thank you.
Commissioner Borelli, go ahead. You want the floor? No? I can't hear you.
Unmuted. I know, unmuted now. Well, Elizabeth went dark and David froze, so it's a fun evening here tonight with Human Services. By the way, David, when you froze, like your face was still perfect. It's pretty wild. Like, that's the first time. Usually it's Great report. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Welcome back. Good to see you. I would echo Barbara, everything Corey said. We find that in our WHCHC buildings as well with seniors. You know, there are older adults, some who would have some level of technology, but you know, not much past phoning, texting with family members. So there really was a challenge with reaching and connecting. Some who are resident services coordinators would actually help fill out their paperwork every month for certain things. And how do you do that when you're having to protect them and be safe? And I'll knock on wood, 18 buildings, 950 residents, not a single case of COVID. We feel very fortunate at WHCHC. Relatedly, and to going back to what Elizabeth reported on, really the service providers are heroes. And I can say that about our resident service coordinators in our buildings, 14 of which in West Hollywood, 5 outside of West Hollywood. Interesting juxtapositions, of course, but having to quickly adapt to a completely different service model with, as Corey pointed out, a range of seniors with very diverging and different needs. Well, in our case, not just seniors. It was challenging, and they certainly rose to the occasion. So I applaud all the service providers who are, you know, still doing this all these months and months and months later. And it really was different to see how fortunate West Hollywood residents were and are and continue to be with so many of the social services in place, the contracts in place, the connections to services in place versus Los Angeles, you know, bigger, vaster, more bureaucracy. So we really could see that in our buildings and had to act even stronger for especially our more fragile residents. And isolation truly was and is and continues to be a challenge for many people within our portfolio. Just having programs at the buildings where we would do exercise classes or cooking classes or the gardening programs, even folks who don't often participate might come once or twice a month. And that's just their little toe tap in. And because we had to shut down all those programs, it really change things. So we're probably like our service providers here, continuing to do what we can to connect and keep folks connected. It was great to hear that we did get new folks into service, and we hope that they retain and continue to realize that there are so many things available to them. Thank you for this really important update on this program. And I'll connect back to what we were talking about earlier. Now we can see what 5 years of aging in place has gotten us to, and we've still more work to do. Hopefully our social equity and racial equity programs, which we're just kicking off, will do the same as we progress towards that goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Borelli. Commissioner Reback, do you have anything?
Yes, thank you, Chair Davis. I just want to applaud the staff and strategic initiatives for their great work in jumping into action during this unusual and crazy time. It's been quite a 13-month or so roller coaster, and you know, all the staff too, Leslie, David, Katie, Francisco, Jenny, everyone included. You've done a marvelous job in adapting to this, and especially with the aging in place, I'm glad to hear that we were able to continue to reach out by telephone and by mail when necessary to reach the older adults that we need to, and that we thought to go to increase Russian and bilingual communication, which is very important because those are people that need services. So I really think we've done a great job. Not to pat ourselves on the back too much, there's a lot of work to do, especially in regards to vaccines, as Commissioner Meltzer mentioned. And David, I'm very glad you'll be talking about that later on, especially as we move ahead. Just want to impress upon the fact that there are many older adults who still do not use the computer. So as much as we can do by telephone and by mail, I know it's old fashioned and doesn't sound quite today, but in my line of work, especially dealing with older adults in my professional practice and seeing what we do here in the city. Telephone and mail is very effective. I know it's time consuming and expensive, but if we're trying to reach people, that may be how to reach the ones that we need to reach. But I really think we've done a great job in doing as best as we possibly could during this unprecedented catastrophe. And I think the city will come out stronger for it in the end. And hopefully that end is sometime soon. But, thank you very much for the report. I don't really have any questions, and hopefully we can just continue to make progress and address this into the coming year in 2021. So thank you guys. Thank you all.
Commissioner Shandrick, any comments or questions?
In addition to just terrific work and very impressive how everyone rose to the occasion, I think just commending everyone's efforts on having a solid plan that we could pivot this way. Some interesting things were brought up that, this was kind of an experiment, and to see maybe how things we looked at were accelerating, like people getting used to Zoom more quickly and adopting new technologies. And then also on the flip side, how other technologies like the phone, like mail, may have played a really important role. So, before we get too far too fast, I really, especially for aging in place, I think it would be really important to create space and time to really look at each element of things that have been going on, the call networks, the mailers in different languages, and see what you thought was effective and what motivated people and what engaged people and what stuck. I think this is a tough time, but it's also a great time that we experimented with. And so it would be great to just kind of understand those things and post-pandemic continue to incorporate them and refine our great process. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Shandrick. Vice Chair Palmieri.
Great, thank you. Diane, Corey, Elizabeth, it's always so good to see you and to hear what you have to offer us. I need to just say, I remember when this first came here. I don't even know how it came up. I think we were finding that there were more people over 50 than we'd ever had before. And I remember when it was brought to this commission, and I specifically remember Stephen and I did not understand it, didn't actually agree with it because it wasn't clearly, David's laughing, but I think he remembers. We thought it was someone putting like Oz in front of seniors, and it wasn't real. But watching what this has turned into is as a commissioner, it's something I knew could happen, but as a constituent and as a resident here, I'm so happy that it's happening. And I'm happy the amount of time and resources that we're putting into it. I so hate to agree with my colleague, Commissioner Borelli, but I do want to tell you, I do understand that services were not interrupted, and that doesn't go unnoticed. It doesn't go unnoticed by commissioners, and it doesn't go unnoticed by our constituents. The fact that we haven't had interruptions in a lot of services, and the fact that we have additional services during the worst probable time of the world or of our country. My seniors that live on my block that I have a lot of contact with are amazed at what they can get and what they don't have to worry about. And I do want to say in particular, some of the seniors were so excited over fans and bottles of water. It was almost as though someone dropped a treasure chest off at their house. And I know it sounds trite to us maybe, but it was so important to them. And having access to the seniors, because I live on a block with senior housing, it makes the biggest difference, and it makes me feel good that I get to understand why this is happening. The subsidized bus pass, I think, is a given. It's a great thing, and I just love it. But other than that, watching this grow, and it'll just keep growing and growing, it's amazing. And Corey, thanks so much for all the work that you put in, and Diane and Elizabeth, it's always great to see you. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Palmieri. I would agree with everyone. I would have to agree with Jimmy. When you first came to me with with almost anything in the last several years that I've been here. I don't necessarily believe that it's going to do us any good. And I can see it's going to be an incredible waste of time. And I don't know how you're going to ever manage on quantifying it or qualifying it or actually getting it done. And I'm always impressed when you do. So I stand, what is that called, corrected many times. And I will stand corrected, like with the GARE. And I think this is very important that Sam said this, is that this is the first evening we've known there was coming, but this is the first evening we've looked at it. And so in 5 years, the commissioners who will be sitting here will have a much different view of what you're talking about than we do right at this moment. So it was excellent work on everyone's part. It is very nice to see Elizabeth again and the team. And Barbara, do you have something you'd like?
Just when you finish, Stephen, I just want to say.
And then, yeah, I'm done. That's good. I've talked too much.
No, I just want to remind everybody that isolation is not limited to older people, and we just always need to remember that, especially now, there are a lot of people who are younger of all ages who are isolated. So we just need to remember that.
And thank you, commissioners. We hear the feedback. I think certainly, Commissioner Shandrick, we are looking already at some of the things that we want to keep post-pandemic. And you know, it's interesting because even mail right now is not limited to being something that older adults respond to. You know, we've heard from some younger adults that, you know, trip to the mailbox now is an event in COVID. So, you know, we can you know, continue to try to maximize our opportunities to connect with people directly. And one thing we didn't touch on is that, you know, with the transit providers delivering the meals, we have, you know, even more increased opportunity to share information that way as well. So newsletters and flyers and other things have gone out in those ways too, as much as we can kind of safely do that. But we've used that, you know, we've never been in people's homes more than we've been in the last few months. And so, you know, try to take advantage of those opportunities as well. But really, thank you all for your feedback, and it certainly will inform us moving forward.
Cool. Commissioner Palmieri, did you wish to say something? No? Okay. Sorry. Now that I can see all of you, if you move in a certain way, I think, oh, they want to talk. All right. So thank you very much for your report. And we will be moving on to item C, which goes back to Francisco and the transportation updates. You have the floor, but you have to unmute yourself.
Thank you. So good evening, commissioners. 1 second while I share my screen. Alrighty, so my name is Francisco, as you all know, and I'm here to give you guys an update on the city's on-call transportation program.
Francisco, I don't believe we can hear you very well. At least I cannot.
No, I can't.
Maybe because I'm an older adult, but I'm not hearing you very well.
Better now or still the same?
You're better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm here to give you all an update on the city's on-call transportation program. So this program, as you may know, is operated by Ambiance Transportation. The services that they provide are available 24/7, and they're available on demand, so you can request them whenever you want. There's no need to schedule it ahead of time. Trips are provided using Lyft vehicles. However, if someone's uncomfortable using Lyft or they use a wheelchair and can't, you know, take a traditional Lyft ride, Ambiance does have its own vehicle fleets that they can dispatch. So to participate in this program, an individual must live in West Hollywood, be over the age of 62, or be disabled of any age. Once on the program, participants can purchase up to $100 in fare credits that are purchased in increments of 50, and each increment costs $50. So if someone pays $8, they get $50. If they pay $16 in a month, they get $100 in credits. The program is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as I mentioned earlier. And trips can be taken to go to and from destinations located within 10 miles of the city's border. So in this update, I'll kind of go over 3 performance metrics. I'll review trips data, give you guys a sense of the program's costs, and then just briefly mention just some complaints data that we have gathered. So this chart kind of shows you guys how many trips the program has provided since its launch in January of 2019. And the data goes through November of 2020. So during the first month of service, the program provided about 1,100 trips. For the most part, trips provided per month grew month to month. And they peaked in February of 2020 with 2,700 trips or so. Because of COVID, however, the trips provided quickly decreased and reached a low of a little bit over 1,000 trips in April of 2020. As COVID restrictions eased in May and the summer, the number of trips provided by the program increased slightly. However, the trip growth has kind of plateaued. So it's right now we're currently providing about 1,780 trips or so each month. About half of what was provided during February when ridership peaked. This next chart kind of shows you guys the total number of active participants on the program. So when the program first launched in January, we had about 234 unique users. The number of users kind of grew month to month and peaked in February with 642 active program users. The number decreased because of COVID, and in April, we had about 252 active users on the program. And as with trips, the number of active users kind of increased, but it's kind of plateaued at around 330 active users per month currently. So now I'll review cost information for the program for fiscal year 20. So this information is just for the period between July of 2019 and June of 2020. So during that period, the program had a total cost of $433,982. The program provided 21,972 trips. If you divide the cost of the program by the number of trips, you get an average trip cost of $19.75. This compares favorably to the program to our old taxi program that this program replaced. That program had an average cost of nearly $23 per trip. So there's a cost difference there, and this program is obviously more cost efficient. It's better for the city. It's more cost efficient. So the average trip taken with this program had traveled in a distance of 3.3 miles, lasted about 13 minutes, and the city reimbursed Lyft around $12.58 for each trip that was taken. As for complaints, this program has a relatively low complaint number. During the first month, we did see an average, we saw like 10 complaints. The majority of complaints are related to people just being upset that they could no longer, receive a taxi subsidy from the city, or they had issues with the technology. There's an app that people can use with this program. Some people had trouble accessing that. However, as people learned how to use the program, those complaints kind of decreased. We did see a spike in complaints in the summer of 2020. These were mostly related to wait time. So because of the pandemic, the number of Lyft drivers kind of decreased, and as a demand, but with the decrease in drivers, people were waiting. People were used to waiting between 5 and 10 minutes for a ride. During the summer, that wait time increased from like 10 to 15, sometimes a little longer than that. But in the fall and winter, that issue has kind of been addressed. So the wait times are no longer where they were in the summer, but they're still not where they were before COVID. So Ambiance Transportation, the company that operates this program, has been helping the city deliver special COVID-19 related programming. Two programs in particular that I'll mention today are our grocery delivery program and our transportation to COVID-19 vaccine and test sites. So Ambiance has partnered with American GTS, they're the company that operate our pickup line, to offer a grocery delivery program to West Hollywood community members who are a part of the on-call transportation. So through this program, Ambiance uses its call center to kind of take in delivery requests, and then they dispatch those requests to American GTS drivers who then deliver the groceries to community members who request the service. So these groceries are purchased from West Hollywood grocery stores that offer the ability to buy groceries online. Once the groceries are purchased, the community member calls Ambiance, Ambiance takes the request, and then sends that request to American GTS, and they fulfill the delivery. Ambiance is also helping the city offer free transportation to COVID-19 vaccination and test sites. So to participate in this program, some community member must first be enrolled in the on-call transportation program. So they have to be a West Hollywood resident over 62 or disabled of any age, and have an appointment at one of the county's vaccine and test sites. So they provide transportation to both drive-through locations and to walk-in sites. So once someone has an appointment, they just need to call Ambiance. They need to give Ambiance like 3 days notice to book that trip, especially if it's to one of the drive-through locations. Again, it's a free transportation, and it's available to anyone who lives in the city and is a part of the on-call transportation program. With that said, I'm happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Sorry, I have to unmute myself. Commissioner Meltzer, would you like to ask a question?
Yes,
Or
thank you, Francisco. We are so lucky to have this in West Hollywood. We really are. I have just two questions. The problem with Lyft not showing up or a long wait time, can you, as with a cab, call the night before to order a Lyft for the next morning? Can you do that with Lyft? I don't know. I mean, I just don't know.
You could do that, but it doesn't guarantee you a ride, unfortunately. All that it really does is it'll send your trip request to Lyft like 10 minutes before your scheduled time. So it doesn't guarantee you, it doesn't reserve a driver for that trip like it would with a taxi company. So I could say that the wait times are nowhere near where they were in the summer. So from what we get monthly reports from the contractor that kind of show what the wait times are. The wait times people are, it kind of summarizes wait times. And the wait times are currently between, I would say 8 and 10 minutes. So they're not terrible, but they're still nowhere. I mean, they were still, significantly better before COVID.
And one more question. You have to pay the $8 to be taken to be driven to a vaccine site. You have to be a member. So are they not charging that? So you pay $8 and then you get, what is it, $50 a month. So that $50 will remain, is what you're saying.
That's correct. So the cost to go to a vaccine site, like the cost of that trip won't be deducted from your balance. If you just want the vaccine trip and aren't interested in the program, you still sign up. You cannot pay the $8 and they'll still provide the transportation free of charge.
Oh, I hope a lot of people know about that. That's great, Francisco. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Any Commissioner Shandrick? I like hands. This is good.
Great report. Just two observations. Again, I think it's very important, the fact that we were able to pivot, that you all were able to pivot and provide grocery delivery from the service. I don't think we could have imagined something like that before the pandemic. So I encourage everyone to really take time to observe how this had an effect and for the benefit and how we can offer new ways of service that this has shown us and forced us to rethink our approach.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
All right. For me, it's a very good report, and what I would like to commend you on is putting in the fact that there were complaints. Quite often, I have sat through many reports for many different agencies, including our own city, and I have not very rarely seen anyone ever say that they have had a complaint or even how to handle them. So I'm glad that was included in it, because to me, it's an important part of it. If you're missing something, and it's not being taken care of, then it continues to be a sore point with the community. So I'm glad to see that it was included, A, and B, that you're doing something about it. So that's good. Very good. Any other comments? Going once. All right, gentlemen and ladies, we will go from Francisco's report to items from staff. As my screen gets smaller. All right.
So I wanted to start off by going to do the update on COVID-19 emergency services a little bit different. I wanted to focus on services available for our older adults and folks with disabilities who need assistance with registering for vaccination appointments and transportation. It's a perfect segue from Francisco with Ambiance offering free transportation for vaccination appointments within our 10-mile radius. So as you all know, just to make that tangible, that would cover if somebody was going to the mega site at Dodger Stadium, if somebody was going to the Forum, they're bringing up a mega site at Cal State LA, and then the local smaller locations. So in addition to the free transportation through Ambiance, community members living with HIV can call APLA Health Case Manager Ruben Garcia at 213-201-1491 for information on how to make an appointment with public or private providers for a COVID-19 vaccination. And established medical patients of APLA Health can contact their doctor regarding questions or the status of the vaccine at their APLA Health Center. APLA is also offering free transportation to vaccine sites for people living with HIV. Community members can contact Roman Soberantes at 213-201-1301 to schedule a ride. You do not have to be a current client of APLA. It is for community members living with HIV. The West Hollywood Comprehensive Services Center at 323-851-8202 can assist West Hollywood older adults in scheduling appointments over the phone by making a 3-way call. Scheduling by email has to be done by clients themselves because once initiated via email, all communication would be by email. However, the Comprehensive Services Center can also guide people who have technology to use email to schedule appointments online. The Disabilities Community Resource Center, as you know, DCRC, at 310-390-3611, extension 227, can also assist West Hollywood older adults with the telephone or online registration process for vaccinations. The staff person who works with the West Hollywood community, as you all know, is David Kruskal. So we're going to put that into, we've got a summary of those services that are going to go on the website, and I'll be sure to get that out to the commission, and we'll get it out to the community. Just wanted to focus on that. We, council asked us recently, what's the ` issue and concern that community members are calling about? And in addition, of course, to financial assistance and health information, #1 really now is vaccinations, as you have all experienced too. I know that you've had folks coming up to you for information. We get calls every day. Council get calls every day. It does seem to be, the rollout with 65 plus seemed a little bit premature, but it does seem that there are more, certainly are more resources coming online. It's interesting, anecdotally, we had 3 calls passed on to us by the mayor. She had received them over the weekend. They got to us the following week. Staff Joan and Derek followed up, and all 3 had been able to get either the one actually had received their vaccination in that time, and 2 had made an appointment. So I'm taking that as, it is good news. There's more availability, but it's still very challenging, we know. So we wanted to provide those resources tonight, and we'll get a summary of that. It'll be on the website, and we'll get it out to you. So thank you. That's my report. In addition to, sorry, the update on the brochure, that I informed the commission that the trilingual brochure has gone to the designer. It's finalized. It's now in communications for review. In addition to the brochure, it's a 4-page brochure of our contracted agencies and programs. We have a 1-page that's going to accompany it. It will be all of the emergency services, including what we shared with you about vaccinations. And the rent stabilization and housing newsletter did go out week before last, and that had the information about rental assistance programs and the Betsedic eviction prevention and defense. Maybe some of you got that, but it's out, and they've begun to receive calls from folks who saw the information. There we go, in that newsletter. So thank you as always for your support and just frankly on your push to get these out in hard copy. It is important. So that's my report. Leslie, did you have anything?
I don't, not tonight. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks, David.
Thank you. Do we have anyone, Jenny, in the wings who would like to speak to us?
No, we don't, Chair.
All right, so I'm going to skip along merrily here and go to item 8, which is items from the commissioners. And I will just, because I can see all of you finally, it's so nice. I'll start with Mr. Reebok, or Commissioner Reebok, if you like.
Thank you, Chair Davis. Just want to thank staff for excellent presentations this evening. Thank the public for joining us. I see Ms. Dora is also joining us. She's always welcome. Thank you for joining us, Yola. Then I just want to say that it's been a pleasure to serve. I know our terms are coming to an end, and I just want to commend the commission and the staff for just an outstanding job the last 2 years while we've been serving on this commission. It's truly been unprecedented. I know my service as chair was definitely an interesting experience as we were shut down. And then I want to thank all of our fellow commissioners and staff for fighting to get us back up and meeting as soon as possible. I think it was very important for the community to get us back moving again, and we showed some perseverance in doing that. And, we showed that we could have a dual focus and focusing on the pandemic and on our normal duties at the same time. And I'm just very proud of my fellow commissioners for that. It was really an honor to serve with you all and to work with the staff for the betterment of our community for these last 2 years. I think we've done a great job. We have some new great things like the trilingual brochure. We have our monthly update about COVID relief from staff, which we're grateful for. And I'm sure people who are listening, anyone on the YouTube channel, are grateful for the phone numbers you provided, and they'll probably be used. And I'm very grateful that staff is moving forward with aggressive efforts to help with vaccinating our community. We really have tried to be a step ahead of the game during this thing. And it's just been a pleasure and truly something I've been proud of. And I just want to thank you all and, thank our resilient community also. We've all been through a hell of a lot this last year, and we're really showing that West Hollywood's doing okay. And hopefully at the end of this year, we'll be somewhat back to the way we were before all this. So it's been a pleasure, and thank you, Chair, thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you to all my fellow commissioners and to staff. Wish everybody the best, and hopefully I see you all soon.
Commissioner Shandrick, would you like to go next, please?
Sure, very good meeting. Thank you, everyone. I'll just report I sat in on the city manager's webinar about the budget, the state of the budget. And I'll just want to iterate how lucky we are with social services and our emergency funding that has been approved to provide rental assistance and address food insecurity. The city is, in quite a budget state, but they spoke about the importance of continuing to provide this emergency assistance, and also talked about hope of some reimbursement from the CARES Act. So I just wanted to bring that up to just emphasize how important the emergency funding is at this time. On another matter, at the California Community Foundation, we've been focused a lot on the mass vaccination plan for the county, 8 million Angelinos. So it is going to be happening. It is going to be big. It is going to take a few more weeks and months, but plans are being rapidly put into place. So hang in there, everyone.
Commissioner Borelli?
That's me here. Since Mr. Rizzo was on earlier under public comments, so we didn't have opportunity to ask him questions. He mentioned the Luna program, and I didn't know if that was named after a certain dog that everybody in the city knows very well, Miss Luna Palmieri. I'll have to email him directly to find out. Yes, I've been holding on to that for an hour and 45 minutes. Thank God we do things really well here in West Hollywood. I was on a call for Palm Springs City Council on a Zoom till 11:45 p.m. And when they had public commenters, we waited and they called the person at home who could then speak. So it made an hour and a half staff item about 2.5 hours long. Quite insane. And yes, I was up till 11:45, but WHCHE's new West Palm Springs project was approved. Very happy about that. So I was also really excited to hear what Corey said, and I quote, "We're in more homes than we have ever been before." Reaching more people the way they need to be reached, whether it's flyers or brochures in the food delivery services. That's just fantastic. And lastly, since I do see her name, and Commissioner Reback mentioned it, Ms. Dore, if she is listening, had a birthday recently, and I know some of us got to celebrate with her last year, and she shared some of those pictures this year. So if she is listening, happy birthday, Yola, and we hope to see you in person real soon. Good job, everyone.
Commissioner Meltzer.
Thank you. I was just going to say that she's hiding there. Hi, Yola. She's just hiding back there. Thank you, staff. Thank you for all the great things you do. I mean, I really think it's miraculous. And I didn't realize that you, Commissioner Reback, you're saying goodbye. So it's been lovely serving with you. I hope it doesn't happen, and I hope if it does, that you wind up doing something you really love. So thank you. I went to the Children's Roundtable. It wasn't what it usually is, but I learned how to have a mindful conversation, which I think is very important. It was fun and I really enjoyed it. And I got to see Daphne Dennis, who was there as well. We were both learning how to speak mindfully. And I went to the Senior Advisory Board, and there is a new advisory board member, Nadia Sutton, who many of you probably know. They whisked her away from the Women's Advisory Board, and she's now on the Senior Advisory Board. And I got my shot. So anyway, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for everything.
If I may, Commissioner Meltzer, rumors of my demise may be premature a bit, but I was just wanting to comment on the general term that we all had together and the great job that we all did. Certainly hope it's not my last meeting. I'd love to see you all again, but we'll leave that in the hands that be. But thank you, Commissioner Meltzer.
Commissioner Palmieri.
Yes, thank you very much. Back to Cast, and by the way, I'm hoping that program was named after my dog. Something should be named after her. David, maybe I can ask you a question because we couldn't ask Mike. He said that there is a scholarship from Cast. Is it in perpetuity, and what is the value of it?
It is in perpetuity. It's for their outpatient program that, we have we've actually had this available to us for well over a year. We invite, we recently, Joan and I met with Mike and the other administrators at CAST, about how to get the word out. They are, even though they're not one of our contracted providers, they are listed in our social services brochure. For our brochure, you're either one of our nonprofits, or if you're a for-profit, which this is, you're offering a scholarship or a discount or free. So they're in our brochure, trying to make more awareness of this program. Our other providers, Tarzana, Awakenings, they know that it's a good option for community members if they finish a residential program, but they need to stay in a program and they want to be local. It's right. I don't know if you've seen the location. It's right it's on Doheny, and it's walking distance for a large part of West Hollywood. So this has been available for quite some time. It's and it's not meant to be, but it's a best kept secret. But,
and do you know the actual value of it?
I don't know what this is truly a scholarship. They normally only take folks with, private health insurance. So it is valuable, I can tell you that, but I don't know exactly how much they would charge per session. We can find out.
Yeah. I would like to please encourage everyone to please continue wearing masks, if not 2 masks. I do see some people not wearing them. Supposedly the city, when I was watching the last council meeting, they will be giving $300 tickets out, and they can escalate. Well, whether they do it or not, I don't know. But I have noticed that the sheriffs are wearing masks a lot more regularly than in the past. I still would like to bring up the calfresh.org. I've now had like 11 friends get it, and it's very simple. Just go to calfresh.org. It's a simple fill out, and usually you can get an answer within a week, and you can get up to I think $200 and some odd, and they've just increased it now under Biden. It's a big help for people that are losing work or that are sick during COVID. I also want to mention to anyone that might be watching that there is rental assistance dollars, and if you are affected by COVID, like 6 of my neighbors have been, and they were given rental assistance, it's a big help until you're able to get your work. I really want folks to enjoy eating out. I feel bad for younger folks that are not being able to go to clubs or bars. But also, it's really important to follow guidelines, safety guidelines, because we're all in this together and we all want to stay well. And I want everyone to enjoy eating out. I probably won't for a while, but it is something that I love to do. Unfortunately, when I see folks just crowded together and not observing distance online and taking up the entire sidewalk, I don't get angry. I feel sort of scared. It's a little bit scary, and I sort of want this to go away somehow, some way. And other than that, this was a great meeting, and we got a lot of great information, and I'm really happy about it. So thanks.
Thank you. I have a couple things. First off, I would like to congratulate and welcome the vice chair, Jimmy Palmieri. I didn't get a chance to. He went off to get his shot and got voted in, not even there. So I wanted to congratulate you. It's a good choice. You have the funding cycle, so it's going to be a lot of work. We'll try to help you, but it's fun to watch someone else do it. And then also, thank you to the staff for a very good meeting, a lot of information, and good starting point. I think the commission, I've been here a long time. Commission, in my opinion, Commissioner Reback was correct that the last couple of years, commission has been on par with the staff, as opposed to being sort of like floundering or just off the wall. We have moved up, and we have become, I think, something that works really well as a group and as individuals. So I think we should take a little bow for that. And then lastly, I would like to correct an error that I made last month, which I should have closed the meeting in memory of Mr. Tom West, who was a very dear friend and a very dear friend of mine as well as a dear friend of the city's. He started off as the director of Aid for AIDS. He was one of the original County on AIDS services. I know there's a word, an acronym for that, but it's not coming into my brain. And he served on that for at least 20 years until he became the city clerk. He was a social services specialist with the city, worked with Daphne, I'm not certain when he came, but I know he was there. And he then left social services and became the city clerk and then retired. But the man had an incredible sense of humor, an excellent laugh, and it's very sad to have learned that he had passed away in Palm Springs, which is where I guess we all go to pass away in a way. So I know, can you believe it? I'm on YouTube and I'm making nervous wreck. But I would like to just remind people how important Tom West was to the city and how good he was to not only to everyone that he helped, but he was a very good friend of mine. And like I told David Junie today, there were some things that I didn't understand or I thought or I suspected. And all I had to do was have lunch with Tom and my questions were answered, excuse me. So I'd like to close the meeting in honor of Tom West. I believe he passed away in December. So that is the end of the meeting. And I'm also actually not ending the meeting. And actually, I would like to see us all come back. So it would be nice to see the same faces I have here with just one new addition. But I'm not in charge. I'm not a council person, so I don't get to make those decisions. So other than that, I would like to thank everyone and have a good night. And I will see you in March.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.